After teaching Melanie how to shoot a gun, Ludo spends some time on the beach with her. Melanie wistfully hopes to be a part of the future, but in her heart, she accepts her impending death. What she does not know is that Ludo from 1998 has followed her, growing suspicious of her frequent visits to the beach. Luckily, he is unable to see his future self. When Melanie returns home, Ludo finally confronts her, but she shrugs it off and goes to bed. Meanwhile, at the office, Agathe notices that someone recently opened the archive drawers and one of the virtual reality glasses is missing. She checks the logging and finds out that Ludo has been revisiting Zoe's crime scene quite frequently, sometimes even in the night. When Ludo returns to the office, he is relieved to find out that Nathan's life with Florence and his kids has been restored, thanks to Melanie's actions in 1998. When he catches a glance at the victim board, he notices that Yasmin Ben Salam, the new captain who replaced Legroff earlier, is one of the victims of the killer, found with a similar pearl ring on her hand. He instantly rushes to the captain's office to see Legroff's name on the cabin door. Kim and Nathan are concerned that Ludo keeps forgetting crucial parts of the ongoing investigation, but he covers it up. He points out how the killer made all the deaths look like accidents or suicides, but killed Yasmin's life brutally. The captain concludes that all victims must have known the killer, and he asks them to bring forth a suspect, or the case might shut down at the behest of prosecutor Orsat. Ludo and his team find Orsat's involvement rather suspicious. Ludo is bothered that they still have not identified the married man Yasmin had an affair with some 20 years ago, but Nathan seems somewhat casual about it. Kim suggests that Melanie must have known the guy but didn't share it with Ludo, which triggers him and he mistreats her. In the next scene, Melanie sees Nathan and Florence together, which shows her plan worked. Orsat reaches out, cautioning Melanie to be careful as she is rescheduling her cases repeatedly. As she leaves for the beach during her office break, she notices Ludo in her building, but she narrowly escapes him. On the other hand, Agatha revisits Zoe's crime scene to figure out why Ludo is visiting it frequently. However, she is unable to find anything, or even see Melanie, who is already at the beach. Ludo makes amends with Kim and mentions that Orsat might be the suspect, since he was interested in Melanie and had also worked with Yasmin in court. To check Orsat's alibi for Zoe Levy, Ludo decides to steal his phone. In the building, he bumps into Florence, who informs him that Nathan and Yasmin worked together, so much so that she almost thought they had an affair. Inside Orsat's office, Ludo notices a newspaper regarding Melanie's death on the desk. He quickly fumbles through his diaries, only to realize that Orsat was in another city on the day of the murder, which shows Orsat was not their killer. Nathan is worried that Ludo is losing himself, so he advises him to be cautious. Ludo inquires if Nathan knew Yasmin, and he denies it, which makes Ludo doubtful that Nathan could be involved in these murders. Since Agatha is able to recreate Melanie's crime scene, Ludo revisits it and notices that Nathan did not wear gloves, hence contaminating the scene. Nathan was the one who convinced Ludo that it was an accident. When a call to a surfing club confirms that Nathan went to the same surfing club as Nolwenn Gaku, this raises flags, and Ludo realizes that his friend is the killer they are looking for. Since Melanie cannot come up with more excuses, she confides to Ludo in her timeline that she has been seeing a future version of him through a vortex and he is helping her avoid her death. Ludo does not believe it. This leaves Melanie upset and she leaves for the beach. Ludo follows her, apologizing for his initial reaction, and asks her to seek professional help for her insomnia. Melanie storms away. On the other hand, Ludo in 2025 has a row with Parvana, who demands he put a stop to all the madness. Left with no choice, Ludo explains everything to her. Parvana forbids him to meet Melanie because their lives would be altered if Melanie survives. Unable to face Melanie's death again, Ludo rushes to the beach, but Melanie has already left. So, Ludo rushes to Nathan's home and accuses him of being the murderer, sending his case file to Captain Legroff. Instead of going home, Melanie decides to meet her colleague Hector. She cannot come to terms with the fact that Ludo and Juliet have moved on with their lives after her death. Hector comforts her that he would miss her terribly, and under the influence of alcohol, Melanie ends up kissing him. Ashavet of her action, she walks around the city and stays the night at Florence's because of her argument with Ludo. When Ludo and Melanie finally meet at the beach, Ludo tells her that Nathan is her killer. Nathan always had a thing for her since the start. Just then, Ludo is called out of the virtual reality by the captain, who lets him off the case as it is messing with Ludo's judgment. Ludo and Nathan engage in a fight, after which he is suspended, but he manages to steal Nathan's DNA sample and Zoe's case glasses before leaving the station. Ludo sets up the virtual reality in Parvana's studio and meets Melanie, who requests to meet Juliet. Ludo pleads with Juliet, but she has already been filled in by Parvana about Ludo's psychotic episode. Reluctantly, Juliet agrees, but the encounter is too emotional for her, and she has a mental breakdown. Melanie decides to record herself, claiming Nathan is her murderer. She asks Florence to hand over the tape to Ludo the next day. However, when Florence learns what's in the tape, she loses her temper and fumes out of the room. In the next scene, Melanie decides to spend her last day with Ludo and Juliet in 1998. She cooks up a fancy dinner, agrees to go to therapy, and makes love with Ludo, cherishing her moments with her family. The next morning, the day of her murder, she leaves a farewell note to Ludo and runs away. As she sits in her car, a furious Nathan shows up and follows her. He manages to pull her over, angry about what she said to Florence earlier. Melanie gets scared and shoots him with the gun when Nathan tries to take it. Panicking, Melanie flees to Hector's home, giving him the recorded tape. He comforts her and brings her a jersey of her own. There, she discovers that Hector has been obsessed with her since high school and is in possession of many of her lost items. He proposes to her with the same pearl ring, which confirms Melanie's suspicion that Hector is the killer. On the other hand, Parvana destroys the glasses, leaving Ludo with no option to communicate with Melanie. Ludo pays a visit to Hector in search of Melanie's tape. Hector tells him that Nathan stayed in the hospital for a week after Melanie shot him, which means he could not have been the one to kill her. Ludo notices the pearl ring in Hector's ex-wife's photo, confirming that Hector is the serial killer he's been searching for. He calls off Kim from investigating Nathan and goes to apologize to his friend. After that, Ludo follows Hector and engages in a fight with him, collecting his blood as a DNA sample. However, Hector attacks him again and destroys the sample, while almost killing Ludo. In the next scene, Melanie excuses herself to the bathroom. She escapes through the window, but notices that Hector has hidden her car. She makes a run for it, with Hector following her close by until she reaches the cliff over the beach. With nowhere to go, she aims her gun at him, calling him out for his obsession, after which she shoots Hector fatally. In the next scene, Ludo opens his eyes, finding himself lying on the bathroom floor with no signs of his scuffle with Hector. He rushes to his car and happily realizes that Melanie's file has disappeared, which shows that she escaped her death. Ludo rushes home, where Parvana welcomes him. He finds out that Melanie is in jail for Hector's murder and Juliet no longer talks to him. Ludo visits the prison to see Melanie, and finally, after 27 years, they hold each other's hands in the same timeline. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Watch the next videos on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.